So quick review of the agenda. Everyone saw it before, but we'll just obviously do our intros here for about 20 minutes or so. Coming up next, we'll do a more in-depth review of the program and also talk a little bit more kind of about clean energy opportunities and barriers related to the program. Then we'll transition to a Q&A, although again, we can probably do a lot of it as we go during the presentation. And then we'll open it up to a group discussion and pitch session. And when I get to that, I'll definitely explain how that goes. But it'll be a great opportunity to talk more about our potential ideas, ask more questions. And then we'll hold, again, more open time at the end for some wrap up, opportunities for feedback, and more Q&A and other specific pointed questions. So quickly, before we get started, I want to pose a question to everyone and ask what your goals for the session are for today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. Uh-oh. It's not letting me launch the poll. Kiana, do you have access to the poll?
I do not.
Oh no.
I have no idea why it's saying that.
All right, so we're not going to do a poll. We'll clearly have to pivot on that, which is a little bit disappointing because we do have some other polls. Maybe Kiana, Hannah, if you don't mind looking into that while we go to see.
I might have just launched it. Did you guys get it?
It's there. It's in there. It's up.
Yay. Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, no worries.
For some reason, I can't see it, but I trust everyone's entering well. And we'll give it about probably like a minute. All right, Hannah, can you end the poll and then share it?
Okay, I just shared it. Everyone get it?
Hannah, what, you want to read them out to me? For some reason, I can't see it. I don't know why. It's just totally blocked.
Yeah. So 60% said they want to learn more about EmPower. 20% said to learn if their project or idea is eligible. Another 20% to get their feedback on my program / project. 40% said network and or meet potential partners, and 20% said other.
Awesome. I hope we'll be able to meet all those goals today. I think we've got an opportunity for all of that. Does anyone want to jump in and share their other, if they're willing? Whoever answered other.
I'll hop in. I was hoping to learn more about just the technique of writing the grant, what is especially important, and how to make it readable and intriguing and all that. When I'm not a great grant writer, that's why I'm trying to figure out how to write grants better.
Okay, great. Yeah, we won't be able to put that in the formal presentation, but I think we could open up a discussion on, maybe walk folks, if we have enough time, kind of walk folks through the RFP a little bit and share some of the selection criteria. We could kind of go over that a little bit at the end. So we'll put a pin in that and see if we can't circle back to that at the end. So thanks, Susan. All right, so let's just keep on moving and give our program overview and clean energy overview. So a quick background on kind of how and why we developed the, the EmPower Mass program. I think, one obvious statement that I think we're all pretty aware of is that we know that there's a persistent inequitable energy burden and access to clean energy. We know that low-income homes have a disproportionate energy burden. Solar adoption lags for renters and minority communities. MassSave's non-participant study found renters, low-income households, and non-English speaking households more likely to not utilize energy efficiency incentives. And we know that we've had a broad landscape of programs. Massachusetts is pretty progressive, and we've, done a lot of rebates or programs in the past. And we've also done community-based initiatives through MassCEC, models like Solarize and Heat Smart, where we engage with communities and try to increase adoption and reduce costs. But we've certainly over time continued to see that there are persistent barriers, especially in the groups that we've mentioned here, about things like limited time, upfront costs, landlord-tenant split incentives. And we're also, through those programs, we're learning that not all communities are well served by a volunteer-led model. But we also know that in missing some communities who maybe weren't participating with us, we still know that communities and businesses have ideas for other models to expand clean energy, and that leveraging relationships with trusted community partners is definitely key to campaign success. And, in terms of success and speaking about, kind of the really ambitious and important climate goals that the state has and now, the nation has, we know that just quite frankly, all residents both need and deserve to be part of the collective clean energy future. We need to reach everyone. So we had to put something together to start really specifically targeting those that have been missed before. So with that, we put together a program where we're trying to provide access to the benefits of clean energy specifically for previously underserved populations in Massachusetts. Access to the benefits of clean energy, which we'll talk about in a little bit, could be very broad under this program. That way we can ensure that we're trying to reach folks in multiple different ways and, acknowledging that a direct solar PV install might not be possible for everyone, but something like shared solar could be a great opportunity to reduce energy burden. And in terms of how we hope to achieve this, we want to invest directly in communities and community-based organizations and crowdsource solutions for those program models or projects. Because like I was kind of mentioning before, we believe that those solutions to clean energy access really lie in the communities themselves. So you're all here and with one of our first opportunities, which is our participant workshops, so that we can meet folks, help them learn more about the program, hopefully network, maybe give feedback on ideas like a lot of folks are interested in. This is our second of two ahead of the fall deadline. We also will have future rounds ahead of the spring deadline, and I'll talk about the timelines a little bit later. But the main two features, monetary features of the program, are innovation and capacity building grants, ranging from $5,000 to $25,000 with some exceptions, and implementation grants, which are larger grants, $50,000 to $150,000. So what's the difference between each grant? We did try to be pretty literal with the names, but innovation and capacity building is more a new idea that you're exploring. You've got a new and innovative idea for a program model or project, but it still needs discovery, refinement. Maybe it still needs more dedicated stakeholder outreach, or maybe hiring staff to build capacity. So ultimately, this is in a lot of ways seed funding to build towards future program models or projects, either through our program directly or potentially accessing other types of funding opportunities as well. Then the implementation grant. This is the actual program model or project that's relatively complete. You've got your design, you've got your partners, and it's largely ready to go. You just need funding to make it happen. Of course, that doesn't mean that program model or project can't have outreach as a part of the sort of broader program design. And that could be built in capacity building, for that grant. But that would, of course, be built into that sort of broader application. A few good points to clarify. One applicant could apply for both grants for two separate ideas, but you just can't apply to both grants with the same idea. Previous awardees are also eligible for new funding for either a new idea or follow-on funding for a previously awarded idea, because again, we are now entering the second year of funding, so we definitely have folks who have received funding under this before that could consider getting follow-on funding as well. So to walk through in a little bit more depth about the Innovation Capacity Building Grant, funds can be used for, but are certainly not limited to staff time, technical studies, cost for a grant writer, Susan, a little bit like what you mentioned, an accountant, lawyer, or other professional services, or costs associated with ongoing community engagement. And I think the sort of main thing to emphasize here is previous programs or sometimes grants don't allow you to use funding towards staff time, but that's absolutely something that is eligible under this specific program, especially in this style of grant. Like I mentioned before, it can be used towards future clean energy grants, not just through us, such as the Community First Partnership Program, which MASSCEC runs, which I'll share some information on. And this style of funding, it's the seed funding, so it's early stage. So funds are designed to be used relatively quickly and should be used within 2 years. For the implementation grants, applications must present clear metrics for goals and outcomes. So these are program models or projects that are ready for implementation. Like I said, community outreach can be built in, of course. One good thing to clarify about the implementation grant is that there is a 25% cap on capital costs, such as clean energy installation costs. And actually for the innovation capacity building, you can't use that for capital costs at all. And so I guess as an example, to make it clear, if you were going to ask us for a budget of $150,000, you could use up to $37,500 for capital costs. Again, maybe that's partially funding some solar PV installations, or maybe some direct rebates for those that you're trying to reach in maybe an outreach campaign. But again, it's not necessarily the broader budget of your, big, let's say you've got a program budget overall of $300,000, it still would only be out of the budget that you're asking from us. And these are also longer term styled grants that funds can be utilized within 3 years. So, if and when possible, we're hoping folks will design and propose ideas that maybe are even multi-year. And in just a little bit, once we start sharing some of the results of the first round, we'll share some of the past ideas and past awardees as well, to give you a little bit more of a concrete sense of kind of what we've seen under the program. So I mentioned this before, but access to the benefits of clean energy. Obviously, I've used solar PV as an example quite a few times, but we're definitely trying to take a different approach to defining clean energy. And again, it doesn't necessarily need to be limited to those direct installations. Maybe it's getting folks to sign up for shared solar, but maybe benefits of clean energy also means getting cooling from air source heat pumps, or insulation. So health benefits from energy efficiency, and maybe not just for enhanced air quality, but enhanced soundproofing. Maybe ideas around sustainable lighting to enhance a neighborhood and maybe make it wow, words, maybe make it safer. And like I mentioned before, heat pumps for cooling. So I think we're really looking for kind of a broad range of potential solutions, knowing a lot of these things aren't going to be super straightforward. So some other specific parameters around the program, like I mentioned, program models or projects have to work for and serve and give direct benefit in some way to population priority groups, which under our program we define specifically as environmental justice populations, and that's defined by the state EJ policy, also renters and communities disproportionately impacted by environmental hazards such as air quality or heat. Important things to clarify here is that if you have a question about the eligibility of your target community or who you're engaged with, or want to propose something different that you don't quite see defined here, definitely reach out. And also priority groups do not have to be geographically bound. In terms of applicant eligibility, we're definitely seeking anyone and everyone, especially if you're have these interests in these specific goals of the program and want to increase that equitable access to clean energy. We're definitely looking for community-based organizations with a demonstrated history of working with priority populations. Like I mentioned, we do feel that that's key to both the solutions and program success. Nonprofits and individuals are also eligible. Municipalities, including MLP communities or municipal lighting plant communities, are also eligible. For-profit organizations, such as maybe a clean energy implementer or installer, or a financial institution, maybe such as a CDFI, they're also eligible, but need to apply with a nonprofit or community-based partner. Again, part of this is eligibility, but also part of this is, again, we want to ensure that you've got deep ties to the communities that you're working with and are more clearly demonstrating a path towards success. So do I need a partner? If you can say that you are in a group with a demonstrated history of working with a priority population, then it's likely that you need that CBO partner. Nonprofits and individuals are eligible without a partner, but if the above statement still applies to you, maybe you are a nonprofit, but you work in a different space other than the priority groups we've defined, you might want to consider a partner to strengthen your application. Could a CBO or a community-based organization or someone with a strong history of priority group be for profit? That's definitely also possible. So there'll certainly be one-offs for qualification that we'll want to talk with everyone more specifically about. So definitely contact us. And again, I'll hit home. If you have any questions, contact us, or we can chat today to ask those specific questions. All right, so this is where we'll share a little bit of about the first round. We launched a program last year in May. We were able to make 32 awards. That was 19 innovation and capacity building awards and 13 implementation awards, roughly about 2.2 million. In terms of some results to date, we're starting to post blogs, so folks should keep an eye on our website to see results as they're coming in. But on a high level, we've seen solar PV systems installed, contracted for, feasibility studies completed for affordable housing portfolios. A potential site has been found for a community-owned shared solar system, which is really exciting. There's been a whole host of various events, stakeholder conversations, team meetings, especially in the innovation side of things. We've seen co-program launches, such as teams who are participating or are aligned with the MASSCEC Community First program. And a lot of teams have hired new staff as a result of this. In terms of some of the sort of ongoing support we've been offering teams, we've put folks together in what we call cohort calls for folks to share their progress updates, or maybe even share challenges, network, and just really a good opportunity for kind of idea sharing, especially if they're working on similarly styled or maybe similarly focused projects or programs. Like I mentioned before, we've been writing blogs, but we'll keep writing those, so keep an eye out for those to get more results. And one thing I will now do quickly is I will unshare my screen briefly so that I can take us to the website, because I do want to briefly run through give folks a little bit of a flavor of some of our previous awardees. Hopefully folks have taken a look at this, but I want to just quickly share my screen here. And just walk through a couple of examples. Sorry, my computer's being a little bit slow. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Great. So on our website, towards the bottom, so you do have to scroll a little bit to get to it, we have a GIS story map that visualizes and gives a bunch of details on all of our 32 previous awardees. One thing to just quickly note here is we've sort of dropped a pin where these are located, but that's actually a headquarters location. You would definitely want to look through the various details by clicking on these individual ones to actually take a look at where the project is focused. So just a quick caveat there, but as you can at least see sort of on a high level, we have a pretty good geographic distribution, of course, heavier in the Boston and Metro Boston area due to higher population. But what I will do quickly here is maybe we'll just walk us through a handful. So We have a partnership with All in Energy, Groundwork Lawrence, Resonant Energy, Valley Home Insulation, and New Ecology, and also several municipalities. They're actually doing work in the Merrimack Valley and North Suffolk area, and they're actually doing work also in partnership with the Community First program. But this is an implementation grant to do a specifically bilingual clean energy and energy efficiency outreach program. So they are specifically trying to do target English and Spanish speaking populations in those specific locations to give them more information, especially about MASSCEC offerings. And through this, a good example is that they hired a multilingual new staff in order to become a program manager for this program. So it's a great opportunity to both increase language access, but also to hire some new staff to get more energy efficiency and heat pumps in these areas. So I might go a little bit down the line here just because it's easy and I don't want to scroll through too much here on you folks, but the next one that I can highlight is actually an innovation and capacity building grant. I wanted to show this one because it shows sort of a completely different approach. This is a partnership with Browning the Green Space and Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology, and it's a student outreach initiative. So it's focused on the populations that do attend Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology or are interested in attending. And they're doing outreach and recruitment efforts, training and professional development, and offering student stipends to get folks interested and involved in BFIT's new Renewable Energy Technology Associate's degree program. So more of a sort of education and a workforce development type focus, but a really cool different idea here, again, using innovation and capacity building funds. One of the next ones we have on here, we do have some attendees who are awardees, Cape-Ann Climate Coalition. I won't detail your project because you can certainly explain it later, but just wanted to highlight that we have some awardees in our midst. But maybe the last one I'll run through just really quickly here. I know I had mentioned, that you can potentially, get multiple grants depending on the scenario, and I thought that this was a good example to highlight because Codman Square Neighborhood Development Corporation did get 2 grants from us, implementation grants and an innovation grant. The first one was to focus on kind of their broad energy ambassador program, where community-based energy ambassadors lead by example, install clean energy measures, and essentially what they're offering there is when they engage with folks who become clean energy ambassadors, they actually give them a loan to do other rehab work on their homes. That loan is typically paid back. In this instance, it's forgivable if they agree to the terms of becoming a clean energy ambassador and ideally installing these measures in their home and then expanding the outreach and getting more folks educated and involved. They also received an innovation and capacity building grant to actually kind of uplift and bring a community-based organization into the fold to expand the project. So they partnered with West of Washington to further expand and also, again, build capacity for this specific neighborhood partner. So just a nice thing to share there. Definitely, when you get a chance, feel free to read through this. Maybe somebody could also, maybe Hannah or Kiana can share the website in the chat for those that maybe aren't familiar with the website. But if you found us, you probably are, but gives you an opportunity to take a look through as we're going. But I will now take a quick pause. I'll unshare and I'll go back to our slides. All right, so just a few more slides as we kind of wrap up this portion before we move into discussion. But what we also wanted to do now that we've seen some program models or projects kind of get off the ground, start to have some lessons learned, or even some lessons learned from kind of the application process. We've definitely learned, folks, when you're considering hiring, definitely a lot more time and budget to that particular process. Networking and collaboration is extremely important. That's why we're happy to offer connections host opportunities like this to get folks connected. And anytime you feel like you're looking to meet someone or looking to kind of network, definitely reach out and we're happy to help. Partnerships are also essential and sometimes required, but we want to just remind folks that ensure your plan dedicates time and resources to coordination of multiple partners, as we certainly received some feedback from some larger teams that sometimes it takes a lot of time and effort just to get everyone kind of in the same room. We're definitely learning and hearing, which is maybe unsurprising, that CBOs especially still need more support and bandwidth, more planning grants, and so more support approaches might be needed. So that's something we're continuing to take feedback on to see kind of how we can help, whether it's in kind or, you know, how can we also continue to shape the funding opportunities to support especially smaller organizations. And all organizations have definitely expressed need for more education and training. So that's something that a lot of teams are working on and we're looking into as well. If teams are interested in doing anything low income energy efficiency related, MASSCEC program administrators and the CAP agencies definitely want to hear from you. We have some contact information here, but that again, if that's something that folks are interested in, we can touch base and help you get in touch with the right folks if you're planning on something in that space. We also did want to just note some related programming from MASSCEC. If you or anyone that you're, you know, in your network is looking or maybe is heavily focused in workforce development, we're developing a whole wide range of workforce equity programs. We've given out or awarded or in the process of awarding planning grants or implementation grants for various approaches in workforce development. Some will be announced near term. MASSCEC also expects to offer more planning grants as well as larger value implementation grants down the line and probably relatively near term. So that's something that, if I didn't mention it before, we'll definitely share the slides with folks so you can have these links. But I would definitely keep an eye on that, especially if that's of interest to you or anyone in your network. The internship program is also open, although it may be at the tail end of enrollment. So I would check in on that as well, especially if you want an opportunity to get an intern that's paid for by MASSCEC. Two other opportunities to flag. I've mentioned this a handful of times, but the MASSCEC Community First Partnership Program is sort of a solarized styled program where teams are leveraging local knowledge, relationships, and experience from municipalities and CBOs to increase participation in mass save offerings. The program has up to 60,000 available per year. There's a second cohort of the program, or basically second round of this, launching this fall. We've got some contact information here, as well as the links as well. So you can look into that and have some contact information if you have questions. MASSCEC is also offering an education grant, which are relatively small dollar grants, or at least they start small dollars. I do think that they can range a little bit higher. First round of applications are due tomorrow, and the second round are due similarly. So I guess they're a little bit aligned with the first due date of our grants as well, so 10/15. But again, got contact information and links there for you if you want to learn more about that. I know they'll be happy to connect with you and to learn more on those opportunities. So, you know, in the interest of trying to, you know, keep folks up to speed, you know, we did want to acknowledge some, you know, important things that have happened recently: the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as the Massachusetts, excuse me, pardon me, the Massachusetts Climate Bill, where exciting things like the net metering cap was raised, the single parcel rule has been amended, a lot of sort of really big and exciting stuff that, you know, in a lot of ways we're all still learning about exactly how things are going to get rolled out, when they're going to be applied. And so those are things that we're going to continue to monitor and try to find opportunities to either us directly share that information or direct you to the kind of webinars or resources to learn more about those as well. But I think there's a lot of really exciting stuff out of both of those to really help, you know, certainly boost the broader clean energy efforts, but definitely the type of efforts under programs like EmPower. So a quick run through on our timeline. We did release this program in the end of July. So something slightly different from the last round. We're offering 2 specific deadlines for both grants. Both grants will have an opportunity to apply October 21st, so the fall session, and then both grants will have an opportunity to apply in April. This is an effort to try to make it a little bit more cyclical and consistent throughout the year so that there's multiple opportunities. Again, offer 2 opportunities for both grants where we'd only had 1 for the implementation in the past round, again, due to high demand. Like I mentioned, we're hosting these workshops as well as a second set that we'll host ahead of the next deadline as well. Another thing to note and definitely flag and encourage for folks is that we're doing a one-time application review. So basically, this is a good opportunity to draft up, submit your application to us early. We'll give you feedback on, checking the boxes. Is your organization eligible? Is a group that you want to work with eligible? Is it one of our priority groups? Is all of your funding eligible? Just really give you a good run through on, ensuring that you have all the pieces and that also you're in the right style of grant. It wasn't super common last time, but we did have maybe a few instances where it might have been better for a team to be in a different grant, but we weren't able to flag that ahead of time. So great opportunity to just get some feedback, ensure you're on the right track. Initial application review deadline is, early application review deadline, I should say, is September 16th. We'll turn our feedback around in about 2 weeks, which will give you just shy of a month to put in the needed edits and apply October 21st. And we'll have a similar approach in the spring as well. And one thing to note, if you submit something ahead of September 16th, we may not necessarily delay you all the way to September 30th, but we'll try to match about a 2-week turnaround in terms of review. Like I mentioned, we try to offer a wide range of support under the program, including this new application review, hosting lots of one-on-one feedback sessions or bigger office hours. We've got education and informational videos on the website, and we're adding more resources pretty soon. We're more than willing to facilitate introductions. Folks can also join our Slack channel. We have a link in these slides as well, or you can find it on the website. If there's something here you think is missing, definitely let us know. We want to make sure that we're trying to provide as broad amount of support as we are capable of doing under the program. So we have some upcoming office hours in September, the 12th at 5 and the 14th at 2 p.m. So we'll always refresh those on the website as well, but just wanted to flag some of those near-term ones. There's obviously a bit of a gap, so if you need a one-on-one conversation, just reach out and we'll be sure to get you scheduled. And just to quickly run through and maybe continue the conversation, we'll launch a few polls in just a second to kind of wrap things up. But just wanted to kind of run through a little bit of, I mentioned, clean energy access, reducing energy burden, put a few names to kind of what that means and some of the opportunities out there. None of these lists are exhaustive, but just wanted to put some of the kind of key main buckets out there that we see. Kind of energy efficiency is one bucket, envelope improvements, enhanced appliances, heating and hot water, like I mentioned, lighting, renewable energy opportunities, solar hot water, solar PV, shared solar. Other measures might also be electric vehicles or energy storage. Again, like I said, that list is not entirely exhaustive, but that's some of the range that we've certainly seen and definitely encourage. We also want to sort of, again, to kind of fuel the discussion here a little bit, we know that there's persistent barriers, and we know there's high upfront cost, renter, landlord-tenant or renter split incentive, low credit scores that provide barriers to accessing financing, customer acquisition challenges on the implementer side, renovations needed to support clean energy. That's a big one, knowing that, well, if I need to fix my roof to get solar but can't afford to fix my roof, well, that's a very, very limiting barrier right there. So how do we address that? Lack of available space, let's say, again, for PV, but maybe also heat pumps if you're in a sort of a multi-unit building, a general lack of knowledge, a lack of seeding. And what seeding means is maybe, again, like a Solarize-like program, where once you see your neighbor having solar, you're more likely to adopt it yourself because it's something you're comfortable and familiar with. But we know that there's a significant lack of seeding, especially in minority communities. And there's also a lack of representative workers in the industry. So these are, again, a lot of the things that we're seeing that are continually persistent and that a lot of folks are really trying to focus and hone in on for program models or projects. So I'm going to pause quickly here and see if we can't get some more polls going. And Hannah, I'm wondering if you can launch the one that's labeled barrier 1.
I just did it, so hopefully everyone got it.
Awesome. We'll give everyone about a minute, but the poll is should be asking, what is the most persistent barrier to accessing clean energy that you feel is most important to address? We have a whole host of selections there, a lot that you had probably seen in the previous slide, but there might also be ones that we hadn't mentioned. So there's an other category, and if any folks select that one, I may call on you to share. But we'll give folks about another 30 seconds on that, and then we'll have Hannah give us out the results. And there's a quick question in the chat as folks are filling this out. Is there any distinct difference between lack of funding and financing? I actually added lack of funding as a result of a comment from the previous workshop that we did, where we just had lack of financing, because financing maybe is viewed as maybe a loan for an individual. So maybe that's the barrier for individual homeowners to get access to, but there could be lack of funding for a community group to engage in the program model or project they want. So that's kind of the distinction that we were trying to draw there. So funding opportunities more like grants like ours.
Okay, I'm gonna end the poll and then I can share the results.
Great.
Okay, so I can read them out loud. So 20% of people said time / like competing priorities, 40% said access to financing, 80% said access to funding, 20% said trust, 20% said lack of diversity representation in the clean energy world, and 60% said education.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And sounds like there's going to be some pretty good program models or approaches potentially. And maybe why don't we launch one more poll, sort of building off that. Not the barrier to Hannah, but could you do the solutions poll? And we'll pull everyone to see sort of maybe building off that and building off some of the ideas that we've put out, or clean energy opportunities. Folks can give us their feedback on their kind of ideas. Which clean energy solutions are you most excited about expanding access to or with? Same thing, we'll give about a minute. All right. Hannah, you want to share the results?
Yeah. So I just shared the results, and 20% of people said solar PV. Another 20% said PV, specifically shared or community solar. 60% said energy efficiency. Another 60% said air source heat pumps. 60% said EVs. 20% said battery storage or resiliency, and 60% said some combination of these. So every single one was filled out.
Great. So definitely a lot of interest in a wide variety. That's great. So I'm definitely looking forward to opening up the discussion in just a few minutes to kind of learn more about these ideas. So thank you for participating in those polls. I think that was helpful and informative. And again, probably a great lead into our discussion in just a few minutes. So let me just run through. I think this is probably one of my final slides here. Obviously, a lot of folks mentioned various things that they might be excited about, pursuing, and we know that there's a wide and sort of broad landscape of incentives. I will not read through all of these here because it's a pretty exhaustive list, but we know that there's a lot out there to support these various initiatives. There's lots for solar, direct incentives, tax incentives. A lot more new tax incentives and rebates are going to come out of the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of rebates out of MASSCEC for heat pumps, for accessing a 0% financing loan. Also a lot of energy efficiency incentives, including a lot that are free out of the CAP agencies. There is also barrier mitigation grants, rebates for energy, for EVs, for batteries, and also other types of tax incentives for a lot of these. So this we recognize is both very helpful, but potentially overwhelming. So I think especially if you're interested in a particular approach and maybe have questions on what kind of programs or rebates or incentives are available for that specific approach or opportunity, happy to set up a time to walk through and point you in the direction of some good resources. And so let me just check. Okay, so that was my